The moment began quietly, the way important moments often do, without warning or noise. Emma Carter did not wake up that morning knowing her life was about to shift. She followed her routine, the same one she had built over years of careful living. The alarm rang at 6:30. Coffee brewed. The city outside her Seattle apartment moved slowly, wrapped in gray clouds and early light. Everything felt normal, and that was exactly the problem. Emma was 36, thoughtful, steady, and respected at work. She had learned how to live without causing trouble, how to keep her heart protected, how to smile even when something inside felt missing. She believed she was doing life correctly, yet deep inside there was a quiet space that never seemed full. It wasn't sadness, it was absence, a feeling that something important had not yet arrived. She carried that feeling with her to the office. Now she did every day. Emails waited, meetings filled her schedule. She moved through the hours with calm focus, answering questions, offering solutions, and keeping her voice even. People trusted her. They admired her balance. No one knew how often she looked out the window and wondered when life had become something she observed instead of felt. That changed the day. Daniel Brooks walked in. He arrived without drama. No big announcement, no attention-seeking smile. He simply introduced himself in a clear voice and took his seat. He had moved from Toronto, transferred quietly, like someone used to starting over without making a show of it. Emma noticed him. Not because he tried to stand out, but because he d-I-danned. Daniel had a calm presence. He listened more than he spoke. When he did speak, his words were careful but honest. He carried himself like someone who had learned lessons the hard way and chosen peace instead of bitterness. Emma felt it immediately, though she didn't yet understand why. Their first real interaction happened near the coffee machine. It was brief, polite, almost forgettable. Yet when Emma returned to her desk, her thoughts stayed behind. She felt alert in a way she hadn't in years. Awake. Daniel noticed her too. He noticed the way she paused before answering questions, as if she respected words. He noticed how she paid attention when others spoke. He noticed her kindness, quiet but real. She felt familiar to him, like a place he had once known and missed without realizing it. Days moved quickly after that. Their paths crossed naturally. A comment during a meeting. Shared laugh in the hallway. Lunch breaks turned into conversations. Conversations turned into something deeper, without either of them pushing it there. They talked about work first, then about books, music, and cities they loved. Emma spoke about growing up in Oregon, about her love for calm places and long walks. Daniel spoke about Toronto winters, about moving to Seattle for a fresh chapter. They did not speak about pain directly, but it lived between the lines. Emma had loved once before. It had ended slowly, without anger, but with disappointment that stayed long after the goodbye. She had promised herself she would not open that door again unless she was certain. Daniel carried a past too. A relationship. That faded not because of betrayal, but because life pulled to people in different directions. He had learned that love could be gentle and still leave scars because of this. They stayed careful, yet something kept pulling them closer. Emma began to notice how her evenings changed. She no longer rushed home. She lingered at work, hoping for one more conversation. She felt lighter during the day, more present. She caught herself smiling for no reason. It scared her. She had learned not to trust feelings that arrived too quickly. Daniel felt it as well. He found himself looking for Emma in meetings, listening for her voice. He enjoyed the quiet comfort of being around her. Felt easy, natural, and dangerous, in the most honest way. One evening they walked together after work. The city was calm. Evrene had stopped, leaving the streets clean and shining under the lights. They spoke about small things at first, then fell into a comfortable silence. Daniel broke it gently. "Do you ever feel like you're waiting for life to begin?" he asked. Emma stopped walking. The question hit her without warning. She looked at him, surprised by how closely his words matched her own thoughts. All the time she admitted. Daniel nodded. I think we spend so much time being careful that we forget to be real. The words stayed with her long after they said goodnight. That night, Emma sat by her window, watching the city breathe. She realized how long it had been since she felt something new. Not excitement, but recognition. Like life was tapping on her shoulder, asking for her attention. She tried to ignore it. Days passed. Work continued, but something had shifted. Emma felt restless. Daniel felt it too. They were standing near something important, and neither knew how to name it. The tension was not dramatic. It was quiet, emotional, and deeply human. They were two adults who understood the cost of mistakes and the weight of choices. They were not chasing romance. They were standing in front of it, unsure whether to step closer. One afternoon, Emma received an email that changed everything. A leadership opportunity. A promotion she had once dreamed of. It meant more responsibility and recognition. It also meant possible relocation in the future. She stared at the screen, heart racing. She should have been thrilled. Instead, her first thought was Daniel. The realization frightened her more than the decision itself. She didn't tell him right away. She wasn't ready. She needed time to understand what this all meant. But distance grew between them, subtle but noticeable. Conversations became shorter. Smiles carried questions. Daniel felt it. He respected her space, but the silence weighed on him. He wondered if he had imagined the connection. He wondered if life was, once again, teaching him not to expect too much. One evening, after a long meeting, they found themselves alone in the office. The building was quiet, the lights were low. It felt like a moment waiting to happen. Emma finally spoke. She told him about the opportunity, about her fear, about how confused she felt. Daniel listened carefully. When she finished, he didn't rush to respond. Whatever you choose, he said, make sure it's honest. She looked at him, emotions close to the surface. What if honesty hurts? Then it means it matters, he replied. They stood. There, neither moving, no promises were made. No lines were crossed. But something important was understood. As Emma walked home that night, she realized the truth she had been avoiding. Life was not asking her to be perfect. It was asking her to be brave. Part 1 ends not with a decision, but with awareness. With two people standing at the edge of experience, knowing that whatever came next would change them forever. Emma Carter had spent years building a life that felt safe. She liked routines, quiet evenings, and the steady rhythm of work that never demanded too much of her heart. Yet the weeks after her conversation with Daniel Brooks were unlike anything she had experienced. Her thoughts were unsettled, alive in a way they hadn't been for years. The promotion she had received was everything she had dreamed of professionally. But now it came with a price: relocation to Boston. For the first time, Emma realized that life's most important decisions weren't about career or money. They were about the experiences that shaped who she was and who she wanted to become. Emma tried to focus on the excitement. A new city, new challenges, new possibilities. It should have been thrilling. But Daniel's presence lingered in her mind like an unfinished melody. Each day, she remembered his calm gaze, the way he listened as if every word mattered. She remembered how he spoke about growth, honesty, and courage. She had thought she knew what life required of her. But now she was learning that life demanded experience, emotion, and the willingness to risk what was comfortable. The weeks passed in a blur of packing, planning, and saying small goodbyes to familiar streets and faces. At work, Daniel noticed the change in her demeanor. She smiled less automatically, walked more slowly, and sometimes drifted into thought mid-conversation. He wanted to ask her if something was wrong, but he knew Emma needed her own space to come to terms with the choices ahead. He had learned from experience that some truths were better realized in silence, not pushed by questions. Then came the evening when Emma decided she couldn't keep her distance any longer. She asked Daniel to meet her at the small cafe near the harbor, a place they had both walked past dozens of times but never entered together. It was cozy, warm, and smelled faintly of coffee and pastries. Outside, the city lights reflected off wet streets, casting gold and silver patches that made the night feel alive. She felt nervous, the kind of nervous that felt like something important was about to happen. Daniel arrived, calm as always, and greeted her with a gentle smile. They sat across from each other, the low hum of the cafe creating a private space. Between them, Emma told him about Boston, about the promotion, about how exciting and frightening it all was. She watched his expression carefully, trying to read what he might say. But Daniel only listened, giving her space to speak without interruption. When she finally fell silent, he leaned back and spoke softly. "Are you excited?" he asked, genuinely. "Curious?" "I'm scared," Emma admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "And I think that means it matters." Daniel nodded. Experiences do that. They don't promise comfort, they promise growth. The words hit her. She realized he was right. Life had always asked her to be careful, to protect herself, and to avoid mistakes, but comfort had never brought growth. And fear, as much as it unsettled her, was a sign that something real was at stake. They spoke for hours that evening, not about love directly, but about choice, honesty, and the importance of living fully. Emma began to understand that her life needed experiences to be complete. Not every choice would be easy, and not every risk would lead to happiness, but every decision had the power to shape who she was becoming. Daniel's presence made the lesson tangible. He was living proof that risk and growth could coexist, even after pain and loss. The night ended without dramatic confessions or declarations. They left the cafe quietly, walking side by side through the empty streets. Emma felt a strange mixture of relief and longing. Relief that she had spoken, longing because she wasn't sure what would come next. The city was silent, but inside something was finally awake. The next morning, Emma packed the last of her belongings into boxes. Her apartment, once a sanctuary of safety and predictability, now felt like a bridge between what had been and what was to come. She thought about the years she had spent living cautiously, and how little she had allowed herself to truly feel. Every book she had read, every walk she had taken alone. Every quiet evening, she realized now that they were not enough on their own. Life demanded engagement, experience, and sometimes the courage to let go of what was familiar. Her taxi arrived early. She carried the last box with careful hands, her thoughts heavy with questions she couldn't answer. Daniel had agreed to meet her at the airport, and she wondered if seeing him one last time would bring closure or make leaving impossible. When she spotted him waiting near the entrance, the sight of his calm figure made her heart both ache and lift. There were no words immediately, only the soft understanding that they had shared something meaningful and rare. Daniel spoke first. "Whatever you choose, choose the experience that lets you grow." Emma nodded, tears forming at the corners of her eyes. She wanted to explain everything, to promise him something she wasn't sure she could keep. But she realized that honesty was not about promises, was about presence, attention, and courage. She hugged him briefly, a gentle acknowledgement of connection and respect. Then she stepped toward the gate. The airport was busy, but Emma felt strangely isolated. She focused on the sounds, the rolling of luggage, distant announcements, and the occasional laugh of travelers, grounding herself in the present. She looked back once. Daniel's figure was still there, steady, watching, silent. She smiled through her tears, not because leaving was easy, but because she had finally understood the essence of life. It was meant to be experienced fully, with courage, honesty, and emotional depth, on the plane. As Seattle disappeared beneath clouds, Emma thought of all the quiet lessons she had learned. Life required risk. Life required emotion. Life required courage. She realized that what she feared most, the unknown, was also what could bring the richest experiences. Boston arrived like a new chapter, a city alive with possibilities. Emma stepped into her new apartment, boxes still unpacked, and felt the weight of beginnings. She explored streets, found coffee shops, and slowly allowed herself to engage with the unfamiliar. The city was not the same as Seattle, and that was precisely what made it exciting. Life demanded change, she realized, because comfort alone could never teach her what she was capable of. Weeks passed, and Emma found herself growing stronger, braver. She took the promotion seriously, learning to lead with kindness and confidence. Yet, through all the professional success, her mind often wandered to Daniel. She realized that the experience of connection, of meaningful human engagement, was as essential to life as any career milestone. Every conversation they had, every quiet moment together, had left a lasting impact. She knew now that her past caution had been necessary preparation, but the real life she longed for was shaped by experience, by risk, by emotional honesty. One evening, she received a message from Daniel. Not a dramatic confession, not a demand or expectation, just a simple note. I hope you're thriving. Emma, remember to live fully. She smiled, realizing that life had given her more than a promotion or a new city. It had given her clarity. Life was not about avoiding mistakes or heartache. It was about embracing experience and learning from it. Months later, walking through Boston Harbor at sunset, Emma reflected on the journey that had begun with quiet longing in Seattle. She remembered the first conversations with Daniel, the slow realization of desire and connection, the fear of leaving behind what was familiar. Every emotion had mattered. Every choice had mattered. And through it all, she had discovered that life's true beauty came from the courage to experience it fully, to embrace growth, and to honor the heart's quiet insistence that she live. Truly live. Emma knew now that life was never perfect, never promised certainty, but it offered something far more valuable, the chance to feel, to grow, and to discover oneself in the midst of risk and change. And for the first time in years, she felt ready for it, no matter where the path led next. The city lights glowed as the water reflected the sky, and Emma smiled quietly, knowing that life had finally met her halfway, and she had finally chosen to meet it fully. Her story, she understood, was no longer just her own. It was the story of anyone who had ever felt cautious, careful, or afraid of the unknown. Life demanded experience, and she was ready to live it the way it must be, honestly, bravely. And with a heart open to all that could come, the plane rides, the cafe conversations, the nights alone, and the silent walks, all of it had led to this realization. Life's richness was in its moments, in the courage to step forward, and in the acceptance that growth often required discomfort. Emma's journey had just begun, and for the first time she welcomed the unknown with open arms. Knowing that experience was the true gift of living,